Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership and business from the inside out. And whoa, let's just say that I am so excited to have a Zappy Zapolin all the way from Miami, Florida on the show today. Welcome to the show, Zappy, and a big hi and hello to all the listeners out there, because this is going to be one hell of a conversation.
I'm excited. Great to be here. It's almost like the greatest moment ever in human history, but I know we're going to get into that. So, yes.
Yeah, it's super cool, Zappy. I watched your documentary last night and it's kind of blew my mind. When we met the other week and when you actually reached out to me, I was just like, oh, and just there was just a vibe. And when vibes collide, vibes are attracted. It's fascinating. And you have such the journey, and we need to be speaking more about this because I think for so long it's just been kind of not spoken about in the mainstream. And here you are bringing it into the mainstream and have been for quite some time and doing amazing things for amazing people. So I am going to get on into it because I want to get you to share your journey and all the benefits of what you've been embarking on and the journey you've been on yourself. You're the co-founder of Psychedelic Concierge. You're a filmmaker. You're an entrepreneur and a consciousness explorer. Zappy, you've spent much of your life exploring a question that sits beyond business success and achievement, and that is, what does it truly mean to heal, awaken, and become more fully human? Love that. After building a career across Wall Street and Silicon Valley, and I think you sold beer.com for like 100 million. I saw.
It wasn't that much. But it was pretty fun to sell it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was wild. I just watching your doc, I did do my homework. You found yourself drawn towards a different frontier altogether, and that is the exploration of consciousness, human potential, and the profound connection between healing and transformation. And as the co-founder of Psychedelic Concierge, you're the creator of the reality of truth. And I highly recommend to everybody, all the listeners out there, it is 1 hour of your time. Do yourself as a favor and watch the documentary. There's a new documentary coming out as well that I think is going live, you said, in October, Zappy, and we can talk about that separately. And so you're a long time advocate for safe, ethical, and intentional psychedelic experiences. And Zappy, you've become the bridge between science, spirituality, leadership, and personal growth. Your work invites people to look beyond symptoms, stories, and identities to explore the deep layers of who they are. Your journey reflects an intentional shapeshift from pursuing success in the external world to exploring the inner landscape of the mind, the heart, and what I like to talk about is the soul. And what becomes possible when those worlds are brought back into alignment. At the heart of your work is a profound inquiry. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a, chesty going on at the moment. If healing is not about becoming someone else, it's about remembering who we truly are. How might that change the way we live, lead, and relate to one another?
Beautiful. All right. Well, I have to say it's been a very organic journey. I didn't set out exactly to do this, but on my own path, as you saw in The Reality of Truth, and I'm glad that the movie resonated with you, but basically I had my own spiritual midlife crisis back in 2010 or so. And I had done everything society told me to do to be fulfilled, go to school, get a job, have a family, make money, be a philanthropist. You'll be totally fulfilled. And I did it. Like you said, I sold, companies and had all kinds of amazing successes. But I just was in that moment realizing that I didn't even know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't even know that it was necessarily worth doing if I had achieved all that they said. And here I am without feeling fulfilled. I was like, holy shit. It was like an existential moment for me. Thankfully, I had a very powerful psychedelic experience when I was younger, where I had done psychedelics with a friend And at some point, I looked over at my hand and it was trillions of atoms and they were vibrating at this certain frequency. And then I looked over at my friend and he was like the same atoms, but like a slightly different frequency than me. And then I looked at the table and I was like, oh my God, everything's frequency, the air in between us. And I was like, I can never unsee this. I don't know what I have to do about this, but I can never unsee it. But I knew in that moment that I couldn't trust my five senses, that my five senses were muting things out that I couldn't maybe handle or that my brain didn't want me to deal with. And I muted it out so I could have this talk with you here, not looking at your trillions of atoms. So I kept that with me. And in the moment of this existential crisis, I was like, you know what? I think I have to go back inside of myself. The answers aren't out there, but I have a glimpse that maybe they could be in me. And I heard about ayahuasca at the time, which is a vine that grows in the rainforest that shaman were giving
Mm,
to people. And I thought, wow, like I think I have to go down and sit with a shaman, not a Western doctor, not a
no.
therapist. No, I need that tens of thousands of years of knowledge for me to
Mm,
go do this right. I knew it. And so I got myself psyched up to do ayahuasca. And, it's funny because that movie, which features Michelle Rodriguez, the
yes.
actress from Fast and
Incredible.
Furious, and she's so amazing in the movie. Like you see her arc of character, but she's still exactly who she is. She's just an even stronger in her own frequency version of herself. And
Yeah.
so because of that, the movie resonates with people. 25 million people have seen it. They say over 1 million people who've watched it have done plant medicine. And I believe it because when we were making the movie, we said, let's try to make a movie where at the end of the movie, the person sitting there, they shut it off and they go, you know what? I think I need to do plant med, you
Well,
know?
yeah, it had me go. It definitely. I mean, I said to you, like I've had a calling for a while, and I haven't done plant medicine, and there's little things that keep popping up, and then even you, and I was like, and then watching it last
Mm,
night, it just gave me such a calming effect. I can't explain it in terms of just the pilgrimage and the journey you went on, and everyone, you need to watch it because listening to everyone's stories, including yours, Michelle's. I can't remember the name of the guy who
Jerry from Rhythmia, Jerry Powell, powerful
incredible. That was
story.
just like, whoa, like, and I think for so long that, psychedelics is like, oh, crazy drugs, all of that. And then yet what we're talking about here is years and years and years, thousands of years. It's plant medicine, like
Healing, yeah.
healing. It's not, you think about therapy, you think about the drugs that you're given, like antidepressants and things like that. Are they helpful versus like plant medicine? And so there's a
Mm.
number of questions I have for you around that. Yeah.
Well, we're in an incredible moment because I think post-pandemic, the government of all the governments are kind of throwing up their hands and saying, "Hey, you know what? We don't have anything to combat this suicide, addiction, depression epidemic. Very scary things happening in the world. People are overwhelmed with technology and
Yeah.
information. Like we can't just go back to, antidepressants and talk therapy. That wasn't even working before the pandemic. Now we got a real crisis and the like the Australian government allowing people to access these plant medicines, that's what's happening in the United States right now. And there was an executive order signed a couple weeks ago where now we are about to have some of these very powerful, amazing medicines rescheduled, decriminalized, things like that, because the government is basically admitting that there is medical benefit in here.
Mm.
And anytime you have a prohibition and you come out of a prohibition, the uptake after a prohibition is like crazy. It's like I'm projecting that tens of millions of people in the United States are going to do psilocybin mushrooms in the next year and a half or 2 years because of this executive order, because it's about to be rescheduled. And that means that because psilocybin mushrooms have had a phase 1 clinical trial showing that they were safe, under the law of the United States, the Right to Try Act, which our President Donald Trump put into place during his first term, that says that if there's a medicine that's gone through a phase 1 clinical trial and been shown to be safe, even if there's no other data on it, you have the right to try it.
Mm.
And that is about to happen for psilocybin mushrooms. And when this hit in the 1960s, everything changed. Culture, music, fashion, business models. It was like everything hit, but they were able to suppress it. The forces at that time were able to put into a prohibition. And this time when it comes out, and I can tell you that there's I don't know what the number is, but there's a lot of mothers in the Midwest, in the United States, in the farming areas, and the real rural, that are taking mushrooms and healing with it and passing it on to their friends, their neighbors, their PTA. And as you probably know, women make most of the medical decisions in the family for
Yeah.
themselves, the husband, the kids. So this is happening, and it's so exciting to watch because there's so much healing in it. These are things that, you see Michelle Rodriguez in The Reality of Truth talk about her San Pedro experience, which was a cactus, this San Pedro. And she says in the movie, and you can see it, she dropped 20 years of like
Yeah.
heavy duty pain and things that weren't hers.
Anger, and then she just said, "I'm not angry anymore." It was fascinating. It was fascinating watching us. Tell us a little bit about you, Zappy, because you said you had an existential crisis. Gosh, trying to get that word out.
That's it.
And like here you are, Silicon Valley, Wall Street, super successful, and then get to this point where you're feeling like and I know that feeling myself. You're looking around, it's almost like you're on the top of a mountain and you're looking around and everyone's looking up at you going, how incredible, super successful. And you're looking around thinking, I am so lonely. I am so
Right.
lost. I've got this thing screaming. My soul was screaming at me as if to say, when are you going to listen? Like, was there
Yeah.
one trigger or one moment that made you go, like, in terms of, okay, I now need to go inwards and I need to go on this
Yeah.
exploration journey?
Yeah. It was like a moment where something really good happened. And then I noticed how fast the feeling of good went away. And I was like, holy shit, like I got no buzz off of that thing. Oh God, this is real bad. And so in that moment, the universe aligns. And I will tell you, probably the reason I'm on this podcast is that ayahuasca is calling you or one of your listeners, for sure you, but also some of your listeners. It's like it's coming for them. And this is, it's a beautiful thing to get a hug from Pachamama, Mother Nature, the grandmother that's holding you and hugging you. And you're like, oh my God, this is like grandmother love. Thank you. And, everybody needs that to some degree. But what's interesting for me about psychedelic medicine is that they each do something different. They all have different capabilities. So, for example, San Pedro cactus that we took in the movie, that one connects you to nature immediately. And it's incredible. And people who live in the city and walk on cement with their shoes and never really ground or touch, they get, whether they like to know it or not, they get out of whack. Their frequency gets disturbed. And so you do San Pedro and it's like, you're connected to nature. And you're like, I'm part of nature. Oh my God, I almost forgot that. This is amazing. And, maybe psilocybin microdosing that brings you back a little bit more joy, or ibogaine because you have an addiction and you really need to go back to your original frequency. This is what the veterans are using. This is what Trump signed the executive order over, because this plant from Africa, iboga, and you can extract this ibogaine alkaloid from it. It can break any addiction, meth,
Yeah, that's,
heroin, crack. You saw Jerry in the
oh my
movie. I
God.
mean,
Honestly, listeners, it was profound. It was like watching, like, just went from like that. It was like, and now, like you say, he has this amazing, what would you call it, healing center in
yeah,
Costa Rica called Rhythmia. What a beautiful name. And
yes,
he, and then his partner and her, like her sharing her journey and just like the change, and then his son, like you just
his
see these
family,
profound,
yes.
which
And
takes me.
there's nothing that could have gotten through Actually, the story is that when somebody saw Jerry in Thailand, the owner of Rhythmia, who's the founder, they saw him in Thailand. He was abusing drugs. He was shooting drugs in his veins. And they said, man, you look like you're going to die. I've seen people like you. And this is like right before they die, they look like you. And they're like, either you're going to die or you could go to Costa Rica and try this plant medicine called ibogaine. It's worth a shot. And he remembered back to Deepak Chopra and I shooting originally years and years ago in his apartment, talking about plant medicine. And then
Right.
that happened. And he got on a plane. He went to Costa Rica and he was healed the first time, which is not rare. There's a movie on Netflix called In Waves and War, follows these veterans who went through absolutely horrific things during the war, and they were suicidal and on all kinds of medications. And now they did ibogaine and they're just loving life and they're vibrating at their own frequency. And so, yeah, long story short, each of these things, and I could go on, they just found out that DMT is great for people who have had a stroke. You can actually repair brain neural pathways, build them up using DMT. They've also found that ketamine, which is a legal anesthetic, it's actually the only legal psychedelic medicine that we have today. I hope that changes in the next number of days as psilocybin and some others get rescheduled. But right now, ketamine is absolutely amazing. I'll tell you the backstory on it. During the Vietnam War, they were doing amputations out in the battlefield, and they were using all kinds of anesthetics like morphine, ether, ketamine, all these. They looked back after the war and they realized that the people that had the ketamine anesthetic had not committed suicide at anywhere near the
Wow.
same rates as everybody else. Yeah. So they were like, what's going on here? They sent it to Yale University, this Dr. John Crystal. He did a 2,000 person study.
Wow.
These days they do like a 24
Yeah.
person study, and they're so excited about it. 2,000 people, they came out with ketamine is 72% effective against treatment resistant depression that nothing else has
Yeah.
worked for.
It's
Grows
crazy.
new neural pathways in your brain and literally is making you smarter. And this is why Elon Musk, you may have seen, he uses ketamine legally for his mental health, but also he's clearly getting smarter and smarter and smarter. But to his defense, I'm sure you could really get depression if every room that you walk into, everybody's like a moron to you, and you keep having to repeat over and over and
Yeah,
over what you want everybody to do for their best interest. And then, but now I think he was a savant to begin with, but now I think he's accelerating with the ketamine. He's solving new physics. He got the astronauts back from the space station
it's crazy.
that NASA couldn't figure out how to do it, and he does it. It's like the guy, that he was building a data center with all of these AI chips, and he had to put together all 100,000 chips into this configuration. And they said it normally would take about a year to do that, and he did it in 17 days.
It's nuts, isn't it? It's not. Let's talk about because that's just like it's hard to fathom and it's hard to believe. And watching the doco, talking to you, and then my own experience. Like we have a real identity crisis. Full stop. I feel like in terms of with the where the world is at right now, in terms of there's so much change that's happening. We're in this revolution speed that's going so fast. You talk about depression. There's a loneliness, epidemic, social media, AI, you name it. You've got burnout going everywhere. I mean, I experience it myself. People that are so unfulfilled and they're just chasing this exterior, this external, and you don't know what it is, and you chase it, and then you realize that's not what it is. Like, why am I chasing this? And so then it comes back to, for me, the question to you around healing and this whole piece around identity, because it's only when we go inwards that we actually realize it is all within here. And yet there's this real fear And even watching when I was watching the doco, and there was one guy that was talking around. He said you can either fear it when we're talking about ayahuasca or plant medicine, if you like, or you can embrace it. I'll use the word embrace it,
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
example. And I think that
Surrender. Maybe
surrender.
surrender,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think surrender. And I guess, Zappy, the question I have for you is, there is so much fear and there's so much constraint, or, like even from when you had your experience back when you were like a teenager.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about uh, ayahuasca and how there is no need to be fearful of it, because
Mm,
if you're having a crisis and you want to fix yourself, or you want to fix is the wrong word, heal, you want to be
mm.
truly connected to who you are.
Right, right. Well, I got my biggest breakthrough in ayahuasca, and I didn't put it in the movie. I put part of it in the movie, but really the moment that struck me, and again, this is all about having a direct experience with this. This is not an intellectual process. This is about you, and you have receptors in your brain for these things that are naturally growing out of the ground in most cases. So these are not only are they natural, but you actually have receptors for them. So that means that either you're supposed to use them, or God made a mistake, and it's funny because in the reality of truth, when I was in that moment in the jungle and I took the medicine and I have the experience of dying and I had the experience of meeting God, the moment that really struck me was God basically said to me, "Do you know how you're breathing right now?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And God was like, "Okay, you're digesting your food, you're growing your hair. Do you know how you're doing it? You're doing it, but do you know how?" And I was like, "No." God was like, "Well, if you don't even know how you're breathing, then what makes you think I need your help?" And I was like, "Shit, you're right. Oh my God, I'm off the hook. Like, what? I'm not going to get all caught up because these people aren't listening to me over here. I don't even know how I'm breathing. I'm in some kind of a miracle situation where I just have to," and God said, "Just enjoy it. It's perfect." And so in that experience, I thought to myself, I'm in a miracle. And this is what psychedelics really do for me whenever I have the experience these days or throughout my life, is they reconnect me to the fact that I'm actually in a miracle. The sun is 93 million miles away, so we can have an atmosphere and breathe. I'm on my phone in real time to China on video. It's like, this is like wizard God level stuff if you showed anybody from the past what you're doing. But to us, we're like, I need a burning bush because like that would be, my thing. And it's like, no, you're in a miracle. And so you're in this 3D supersuit. You get to experience eating chocolate, feeling love, all of these things that you don't, they're not tangible. When you're in this ayahuasca experience and you go to total all your filters off and you're like, wow. And you look around and you're like, hey, if this is death, it's pretty cool. I can't wait for this. This might be better than what I'm doing, but I do have a 3D supersuit. And so I think I'm going to really appreciate my 3D supersuit because that means I can eat chocolate and I, can, do whatever I want in the physical reality. And so that is what these things do. They remind you that you're in a miracle, and the illusion that we're in, this, they call it Maya, this illusion. It's so good. It really looks like you're separate from me and, all these, there's nothing in between us. But then you realize that everything's connected. You see that. And then you go, oh, okay, well, yes, we're on a Zoom, zeros and ones, but we're also having this psychic connection between each other that I feel as strong as the zeros and ones coming over the machine. So
It's fascinating. So you're in this miracle, right? And then you come back to reality. Like, this is the bit that probably the listeners, and you probably get, I'm sure you get resistance from certain people that are like, I'm like, it's crazy. You're crazy. This is, do you know what I mean? Like the
yes,
people
yes.
that are focusing on the outside in, and
It's terrifying to them. Yeah, because I think the quote that you brought up was Aubrey Marcus, and he says something like you can either, do it and be in fear or do it and surrender, and either way it's going to be what it is. And
yes,
I love that because one of the hardest things to do in life is to surrender, and not be in control. But when you're sitting there with God like I was, and you realize that you don't have control, you literally aren't even breathing yourself in any way that you are conscious of, that you have to accept that, as a human, you have these five senses. They're like filters. They're filtering out what you can't deal with. And so
mm,
as humans, we're like scanning mechanisms, scanning for danger, constantly looking for danger, danger. And that might have been okay like thousands of years ago when you were like afraid that you were going to get eaten or attacked or something. But now we're living in 2026, and it's like you don't have to be crazy vigilant just because somebody comes up in your periphery or something like that. And I think, when you, let's say, smoke marijuana or you take an edible, and now 10 filters come off, and you're like, oh, wow, this music sounds really good. These lights are beautiful. It's just like a little bit less filtering happening. Then you take mushrooms and maybe there's 1,000 filters that come off, and you're like, oh my God, like everything is moving, breathing, alive. Oh my God, this is incredible. And then, maybe you do ibogaine or ketamine or something, and you take all the filters off. And now you're sitting in there in present moment awareness, and you're breathing, and your time is slowing down, and you're like, wow, this is what peace feels like. Wow, okay. I guess I am in a miracle, And so you come out of that, and I think, to your point, the crisis that I think we're having, I would call it an empathy crisis that we're having.
mm.
Because
I
I
haven't heard
think
that term. That's fascinating. Like empathy. Yeah, talk a bit
Yeah,
about
and so the reason I say an empathy crisis is that people really do want to care, and you get into something and then you're like, okay, I'm going to help, I'm going to fix this. But then you get distracted with this other thing and technology and life and all this, and then you put it away on the back burner. But when you have empathy, you can actually put yourself in the other person's shoes,
that.
not just want to care, but you put yourself in their shoes. Now you're like, oh, wow, okay. And I think if we have a critical mass of people who go inside themselves using these plants and are vibrating at like a higher frequency, the frequency of empathy being much higher for the planet, for animals, for your your family, strangers that are going to live 50 years from now. When you have empathy like that, if we have enough people, I think we could solve any problem we have as a society, like really quick. And we don't have to get everybody. That's the beautiful thing is like, when people are like, well, you'll never get this person to do it. I'm like, I don't need them. There's like, 40 million people in the United States that say they're psychedelic curious. Okay. 70% of those people say they'd like to be guided. So that's 20 million people that are
Yeah,
looking for
I agree.
guided. It's like, okay, we don't need those other guys
No,
or
I
people.
think
We
you're
get it.
right. I love the notion of an empathy crisis because it's interesting you call it out, and it's such a juxtaposition in terms of here we are, chasing this external material world, and everything's like dopamine hits constantly through, social media. I've got to keep up with this person. I've got to do this. I've got to follow this career because that's what I've been told to do. And yet at the end of the day, there's this, so there's external and then this empathy piece around coming back to one's self. Like there's that crisis. There's also it's fascinating you bring that up because it's like internal versus external versus internal, if that makes sense. And I
Yes.
was even only reflecting myself yesterday thinking, what is it? Like, why are we all so caught up in ourselves, and yet why
Mm.
can't we give more love, more care, more empathy
Mm.
to each other? Because
Yeah.
life can be a bit shit at the moment at times, and everyone's kind of struggling in their own certain way on certain things. And
Mm.
you see it with your clients and in business and the world. It's not necessarily all happy, happy, joy, joy right now. So what we need to
No.
fix, we need to solve that because
Yeah. Well, this is the great promise of psychedelics, because the point of psychedelics is to get your brain to be in a more neuroplastic state. That's what they call it.
Yeah.
And right now, they have very rigid patterns, over
Yeah.
time, generations of, I'm, nobody loves me. It's not going to work out. I'm a drug addict, da, da, da. And even when good things to happen to these people or bad things, they come into these rigid patterns, and all of a sudden it's like, it's not going to work, da, 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 and they spin out. And it's like, why are you doing that to yourself? You have to do a pattern interruption, and that's what these things can do. They do a pattern interruption, and then they're able, when they grow new neural pathways, that is when you're able to really transform yourself in that moment, because you're vibrating at a higher frequency, is how I would put it. And when you're vibrating at your own frequency, you get to start to analyze things that are coming at you based on your intuition. How does this feel to me? Not, oh, what are people going to think, or what am I supposed to do? It's like, no, how do you feel? Intuition. And this is like part of this training of going inside, is learning how to communicate, how you communicate your energy. And so, again, and I want to make a point, because most people don't talk about this either, which is, I have a theory that a lot of people in life, their life becomes really boring too. So they go,
Yes.
oh, you know what? I kind of know that a plane's not going to smash through here, and, this and that. So my brain starts, dialing everything down. And then I kind of know what I'm going to say before I say it. And I know I'm going to move my arm before I move it. And so people get locked into this thing where they're like, oh man, there's nothing surprising at all, So
Like
they have to go. Yeah, they have to go to like a horror movie, so they can jump out and something that they didn't expect is going to happen. They surrender to that. Or they go to a comedy club and, they're like, oh my God, I didn't think the guy was going to say that. It's like, that's what they're craving. And psychedelics and plant medicine, they cause you to have to surrender to, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. If you're properly guided and you've been prepped properly and you have help integrating, if somebody can, and this is what the job of the psychedelic concierge is, to analyze which ones of these medicines you should be doing, what your, practice should be, and then to guide you into that in a way that your set and your setting are great for you to get as much out of it as possible. And when I say set, that means your mindset going into it, and the setting is where you are and who you're with. And
Yeah.
most people get that wrong, and then they take a psychedelic at a concert with 10,000 people, or they take it in, a
Just spit
hotel
out.
room or something. And it's like, no, you got it. You want to be guided, and you want to do this the right way. But if you do that, I have to say, I would not want to go through this life and not go inside of myself in a deep way. And yes, you can get there with meditation and breathing and all that, but it could take you 30 years, and you might not get as deep as somebody might get in their ayahuasca experience or their ketamine journey. And, not only that, you get to hold there. I was in that present moment awareness in ayahuasca for like what seemed like a long time, hours. Same thing with the ketamine, maybe a half hour, you're in this present moment awareness. And if you're trying to do that with your breath or meditation, it's like, it's very
Get
inexact. And
distracted. I know I do. Like, I'm doing a lot of Twin Hearts meditation lately, and just those little things, Marley Bubble, come at me, and he'll like lick me or something, and I'm like, you just come out of it, and I'm like,
yes,
damn, I was feeling all the good energy vibes.
almost there. You're like, oh my God, I was just
Yeah,
like so close.
totally,
Yeah.
totally, totally. Zappy, let's talk about business for a second. And, there's a lot of power shifts. There's a lot of, you've come out of Wall Street, Silicon Valley. I've interviewed over 350 super successful people like yourself around the world. And it's fascinating talking to so many people around the different aspects of the state of business, state of the world from a leadership perspective. Interestingly, what you're talking about here in terms of psychedelics, I feel like there is, like you're talking around the boring crisis, the empathy crisis, etc. It feels like we're at this really profound time when it comes to business and the current way of business. is just not working anymore. Like the hustle, like whatever it takes. You still have, certain people talking about, well, if you're an entrepreneur, you do have to just work 24/7. And I'm like, really, do you? Because it doesn't get you to where
Yeah,
you want to get to, right? Do you
that's
see psychedelics playing a bigger role in business, not just an individual, but in
mm,
businesses as we go forward? I know that's a big question.
yeah, no, I think this is going to be offered by HR services within companies, and the smart ones already have. I have a group that did put about 35, 40 of their employees through a ketamine journey with a medical
Wow.
provider because it used to be also that before the pandemic, your employees' mental health wasn't really your business.
No.
They go home and do whatever you want. I don't really care. Just show up tomorrow.
Yeah,
But
totally.
now with the interconnectedness, the fact that you need people to be reliable and, and especially on Wall Street, there's some people on Wall Street that, they're at home and the company thinks everything's great. And meanwhile, they're curled up in a corner having a panic attack, and $100 million trade just went by that they didn't see because they're so distracted with their own depression or something happening in their life or their family, or they're addicted and they're not paying attention. And so for business, this is one of the most powerful biohacks that there is. It's also, you want to talk about building camaraderie, which is a lot about, how you build a great company is the environment and the atmosphere that you
100%.
create. Yeah. And so when you have people do a journey together, and I've done this for companies, they tell me that after a day or 2 days, they're like, this would have taken us a month out in nature, outward bound, to try to get people to be this empathetic for each other, because like at the end of the day, I was thinking about what you were saying, and at the end of the day, we all want the exact same thing. We just want like peace and happiness for our families.
Totally.
That's
It's
it.
exactly that's it. It's really quite simple, isn't it? And yeah, it's such a we make such a I can't speak catastrophe, you know what I mean? Like everything
Yeah.
is like, and that's where it is. Like, and for me, life, leadership and business, it's all interconnected. It's not separate. And it's the same
Mhm.
with teams. And so how do we get them to feel their
Mm.
best, shine their brightest?
Yes. I had to do some work on myself with psychedelics related to a business situation that happened to me that was like my fish that got away story, where I'm out doing my thing, and as I said, I bought and sold a lot of these domain names, and one of the ones that I bought was creditcards.com, and I built it up with some friends, and over a few years it was going pretty good. And uh, some of those people, they had not had some of the business successes that I had and gotten some cash, and they really needed some cash in that time. So they said, let's sell this creditcards.com. We'll diversify into a bunch of other names and we'll take some money off the table. And I was like, oh, I don't think this is the right move. We got something really special. And I was overruled in that time, and we sold it and, made a few $1 million on that transaction. But after it was bought from us, 2 years almost to the month, they turned around and sold it. The people who bought it from us sold it to American Capital for 133 million. And
Yeah.
so I was sitting there like, why, universe, are you, doing this to me? Like, what's up? Why am I just lost all this, lifetime of capital? And, I was upset. I had a chip on my shoulder. I would have to see the commercials go by on CNBC with my logo and my business
Ugh.
model. And I was like, ah, shit. And so I decided that one of my journeys that I was going to do, I was going to go in there, and I worked with ketamine, and I decided I was going to go really deep. Ketamine's amazing for grief. If you ever meet anyone who's broken up or just can't get over something that happened, a death or anything like that. Ketamine, incredible for grief, works really fast. And so I decided in that journey that I was going to ask the question, why did this happen, and try to get to the bottom of it. And in that journey, I saw my life as if that transaction happened, and I was sitting there and I'm smoking a cigar in the back of a boat, and I'm like, oh, look at me. This is cool. And then it showed me my life of making the reality of truth and doing ayahuasca and sharing it with other people. And it's like, well, which one of these do you want? And I was like, well, this one. And it was like, all right, well, then just like forget about this bullshit. You weren't going to do it, And I was like, I wasn't going to do it. You're right. Okay, I'm good. And I came out and, that didn't have the same electrical charge on it anymore. And
Yeah.
so
How
we
cool. And
all have
ego,
things to heal from.
we do. And it's also so much of it is ego, Zappy, don't you think? Like his ego must
Mhm.
just play a massive role, when we go inside in terms of like just getting called out on your bullshit, right? Like here you are thinking
Mhm.
you're meant to be on the boat with a cigar because your ego's telling you that's what you should be doing. It's
Right.
like when you get caught in flight or fight mode, it's your amygdala saying you're just unsafe. It's everything's unsafe when
Yeah.
actually like it's interesting in the whole ego, and there is, and that's I think that the whole world at the moment. There's a lot of ego, and yet, like you say, we
Mhm.
want to come back just to being peaceful and happiness.
Yeah. This is it, and it's so beautiful that there's so much healing in there because, I've had veterans get treatments and right after it they go, "Oh my God, I just realized something." You're like, "What?" And they go, "Everything that happened to me, it happened to me, but it's not me. I'm me." That's just stuff, And I'm like, wow, cool. That's amazing. They're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not killing myself. I don't need
Incredible.
drugs anymore. And you're like, wow, on treatment. But I want to tell you, there was some science that came out. The reason it makes sense to me is there's some science that came out on ketamine and the brain in Nature magazine. And it said you have this area of your brain called the default mode network.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And that is supposed to be going back and forth between fear and creativity in your
Yeah.
default mode network. Some people get stuck in fear.
Yeah.
And so what happens is they said in that default mode network, there's a mechanism called your lateral habenula. And the lateral habenula is recording all the stress you've ever had in your whole life. And if any moment it becomes too much, it switches your brain into this burst mode, which is a different brain state completely.
Mm,
And in that state, it shuts off your dopamine production. That's your happiness, your motivation. You're like, I can't feel anything. There's all these people who are like, I can't even feel
right
anything.
now, yeah.
And they say the first time that you do medical ketamine, it takes your brain out of burst mode and you immediately start getting your dopamine back. And this is why a big part of why the number one side effect of ketamine is that it breaks suicidal ideation
Mm,
because your lateral habenula was switched on, switched your brain out into burst mode, and you're
it's
walking around, not realizing that you literally aren't getting dopamine and that you could fix that in
yeah.
1/2 hour. So,
It's incredible. It's so incredible. Like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I love what you're doing and it's so profound. It continues to amaze me of how powerful, plant-based medicine and how much it can heal. Like if we keep coming back to healing, like this is not just a, party drug or anything like that. And,
mm,
there still is like somewhat of a stigma around, like that's too
mhm,
crazy. What are you doing? It's not safe. It's dangerous. And here you are talking about all the benefits. A couple of final questions for you because I do know it's Friday evening for you. You mentioned to me you have a new doco coming out called Frequency, the Secret of Everything, and it's just recently won a Ray of Hope award. How beautiful.
mm,
Tell us
yeah,
just quickly a little bit about that.
sure. I'm excited for this. So I did one other documentary called Lamar Odom Reborn, where
Yes.
I gave Lamar Odom, the basketball player Kardashian, a psychedelic intervention. And like Michelle Rodriguez, he's one of those think for yourself people and doesn't mind a camera being around. And so he's incredible in that movie. And in that experience, I started to think about, in my mind, like the future of psychedelics, like how are those going to be delivered? And as I started to investigate frequency, a friend of mine's a biohacker who's really into this frequency healing and how frequency is about to be everything to medical. They're not going to cut you open. They're just going to give you the frequency of, say, a healthy liver cell, and all the other liver cells just up level. They go, that's a better frequency, and they just up level. And there was a doctor in the 1950s named Royal Rife who came up with the concept that every disease and every virus has its own frequency, very specific frequency. And he said, if you hit that frequency with the exact opposite frequency, it'll disappear.
Yeah.
And and so everybody was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Well, they threw him in a mental institution. They destroyed all his lab equipment, and they tried to suppress frequencies from being used in medicine for a long time. And so thankfully, those frequencies now, the technology and our understanding of how the field around us works, well, now these devices and diseases can be managed with frequency medicine. And there's agriculture benefits. There's, the future of psychedelics will be digital. You put these headphones on, and I'll give you the example of vitamin C. If you eat an orange, goes into your stomach, causes a chemical reaction, which causes an electrical reaction in your brain that says, do this mechanism of action in the body. But if you put headphones on and I give you the frequency of vitamin C, your brain doesn't know the difference. It's like, oh, vitamin C frequency. Okay, I'll
How
do this
incredible.
within the body. Yeah. And so
That's so
we're really, this movie is blowing the cover basically off of how frequencies already being used. I'll give you one agriculture example. The example is that if you are a farmer and you're growing corn and caterpillars eat your corn out in the field, but the birds, the crows eat those caterpillars, then what you do is these farmers are, right when they spray the field with the water, they put it through a frequency device that puts the frequency of crows into the water. They spray the field, and all the bugs just go right around it. They're like, nope, nope, not going there. And so
How cool.
they're using no fertilizer, no pesticides, and they're getting better yields because frequency is being delivered in the field. And it's just an exciting opportunity that we all have. And I think it's, it needed to be in this time and moment when people understood, more about medical and more about science and technology, that they could handle the fact that everything is about to be delivered through frequencies, and that we have to protect our frequencies and,
Yeah,
all
energy
kinds
as
of
well, yeah.
things.
I love it. Oh my God, so cool. I cannot wait to watch the doco. When is it actually live?
So the date, I'm not exactly sure, but we've got probably about 5 months where we're out doing screenings. So this is like sometime in the fall or something like that when we'll bring it out and make it available publicly. But we want it to be free. We want everybody, to watch it. So we're not going to put it on Netflix or anything like that. We're just going to try to build a really strong community because there are incredible devices that are already out there, and there's services and technologies and things that people are using. And it's just like plant medicine. When I started talking about it in 2010, people were just like, I don't know what you're talking about. This sounds crazy. Forget about it. And now people are like, oh my God, I understand this is, real medical benefit. How do I
Mm,
do it? And so it's taken all of that. It's taken, even, you probably saw Brian Johnson, the biohacker, who's the, don't die, live forever guy. He just did psychedelic medicine for longevity because he had heard about the longevity benefits, and it totally has changed his life, and all of his longevity markers are better than they've ever been. He said he's so excited about psychedelic medicine for longevity. He goes, because diet can help a little bit, exercise a little bit, sleep a little bit. But he's like, these psychedelic medicines, it's like all of those put together plus, plus, plus. He's like,
yeah.
I'm reverse aging right now,
It's so
So
wild, isn't it?
awesome.
My final question for you, and you're gonna be like, "Will be like, why is she bringing this up?" I wanna come success. I wanna come right back to that word success because it's such an external word,
Yeah.
and everyone's still striving for success. Like it's money, 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 materialism, all of that. I need to do this if I just take this next step, I'm going to reach this success. Here you are. Like I said, you've Wall Street, Silicon Valley, super successful in your own right. And then you decide to go on the journey. You become what was it called? A psychonaut,
A psychonaut, yeah,
I love
a
that.
sailor of the mind,
Yeah,
yeah.
sailor of the mind. It's such a cool term, and you are a trailblazer for psychedelics, plant-based medicine. And you just mentioned something super, kind of just clicked for me, because you was like, I started this in 2010. We're like 2026, 16 years later. And back then people were saying to you, Zappy, you're crazy, you're off your head, what are you doing? And the reason I bring up the word success is because this comes back to healing yourself from the inside out, knowing who you are internally.
Exactly.
And so success doesn't have to look like the way it looks like right now, right? Because look at you, like look what you're doing, but it takes time, and you have to. I don't know. I don't even think it's a question.
Well, I want to tell you, somebody said something really beautiful to me the other day about their psychedelic journey that they had. They did a very high dose of mushrooms, and they basically were, sitting there with God, and they said, "What is the meaning of life?" And God said, "The meaning of life is to live a life of meaning." And they were like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty good." Okay, they go, "What?" And okay, well, let me ask you this: if humans annihilate each other, what happens? And God said, consciousness is always there, and don't worry, because even if something happens over here, it's happening over here in that moment. So don't worry, And he was really, kind of was able to get back to himself in that moment. And so there's all of these. The medicine gives you what you need. It's not going to always give you what you want, but it's going to give you what you need. And I will tell you just a success story. One of my close friends, he was in technology. He was having an entrepreneurial nightmare happen where he wasn't making money, and time was going by, and his family was being, disturbed by this, his marriage, all these different things. And he was really in a dark place. He was thinking about, maybe taking his life. And he said that he was at a Halloween party of another friend of ours, and he was sitting there with his costume on. He's just like, this is such bullshit, And he said our friend had a big bowl of mushrooms on the table. So he's like, you know what? Screw this. And he's like, takes a giant handful of mushrooms, takes another one, And he said he had this experience that night. He goes, that was like a transformative experience. He's like, but 2 days later, I started my company based on what I realized about how I was seeing what I was doing in the wrong way. I just kept going this way when I shifted to this way. And when I tell you, this guy is making more than $1 million a month right now, and he's just crushing it. And he's like, if I hadn't done those mushrooms that night, like I might not even be here. And so this is powerful energy that we have access to. I have a friend of mine who's a realtor. She wanted clarity on what she was doing. She came to a ketamine group, and in the ketamine group, she's a realtor here in Delray Beach, Florida. She was in the journey, and she said she saw herself in the boardroom with the investors at the board table. And she said, the ketamine downloaded me the exact speech that I'm going to give to these people. And she's like, I want to tell it to you right now. She tells it to us. And we're like, oh my God, that's amazing. It was about her being like a steward of the property. And she was going to make sure that whoever bought there, that, they really were part of this, same community. And they gave her the $10 million listing that she wanted in Delray. She said the exact speech. So, this is consciousness. And
yeah, consciousness. It's not shit that's just made up. Like it's actual consciousness. It's not wacky, wacky thinking. Wacky think is the wrong thing.
No, and it's not just a plant that's growing out of the ground that's like a tomato. It's not. It has a consciousness, and it can help you. And I love what Timothy Leary always said, the 1960s icon of LSD. He always said, if you encounter something in your journey, an entity, a person, an alien, whatever it is, it could be you from the future showing up to helping yourself in the present moment.
Mm,
And I
yes.
believe that that's possible. And so, what else can you do but go inside, trust nature, and don't take it seriously? Because that is the mistake that humans make is, we get all serious about it. And meanwhile, we're in this beautiful miracle that we all could be enjoying, but we get caught up. And so I would say don't if you have receptors in your brain and these things are growing out of nature, find somebody that can guide you, find a psychedelic concierge that can put you on the right track with the right people and help you integrate your journey. And I guarantee whether you're want peak performance like Brian Johnson or my friend, or you want to get that listing, or you want to eat better, whatever, drop your cigarette. There is a plant medicine for it because all of our drugs all come from nature, and everything we even know about, everything comes from nature. So
It's
dive
incredible.
in there.
Thank you, Zappy. Gosh, we are so on frequency because I was about to ask you what's your piece of advice and you've already just shared it. Like, incredible. Didn't even have to ask you. Dude, like the frequency, the vibe.
Psychic connection.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally. Zappy, how do we find out more about you? Where do we go?
So I'm at Zappy Zapolin. So Zappy, and then my last name is Zapolin, like a violin, Zapolin. You can look me there, zappyzapolin.com. You can find me right there. And these days I'm like living out of a couple suitcases, making movies and going around and doing ceremonies. So I can't wait to come to Australia, hang out with you, do some
Yes.
journeying. And anybody else that's around you, it's time. It's time to really take advantage of this moment that we get.
Yeah, take advantage of the moment, this very moment. Zappy, thank you so much. What an incredible conversation. I love it. Yeah, amazing. Just so bright too. Thank you so much. Have a
It's sweet.
wonderful Friday evening and happy weekend vibes to you. And yeah, I cannot wait to watch your next documentary. And I'm going to watch
Awesome.
the Lamar
Yes.
Reborn this weekend too.
All right. Amazing. Thank you for having me. Peace.
Take care. Thank
I
you.
think we saved somebody's life tonight. So even if
Same.
we never find out what happened, we took the time to communicate like this and share it with other people. So thank you.
Thank you, Zappy. Thank you.